Anyone who has a dream is amazing. Determined to become a superhero, little Peter soon plunged into the ocean of knowledge. I have to admit that there is indeed a big difference between geniuses and ordinary people. Without any guidance from anyone, little Peter picked up the physics books and started to learn by himself. Unexpectedly, he did not read the most basic textbooks, but skipped a few stages and started learning, because those he already knew the basic theoretical knowledge. Great job, my little Peter. Lu Chuang nodded in satisfaction, and he was not worried that this would affect little Peter's normal studies. Because he found that elementary school students in America are really free. After school at 3 p.m. every day, the school basically does not assign any tasks, so the elementary school students have a lot of time to play and play. Only those rich families will hire private education for their children. Perform elite teaching. And little Peter's family environment, Lu Chuang also understands. His parents died, and he was adopted by his uncle and aunt. However, not long after, his uncle also died in an act of righteousness. Yes, it was the uncle who said, "With greater ability comes greater responsibility," brother said. In short, only Aunt May is left in little Peter's family, and Aunt May has limited economic ability and cannot afford expensive private education at all, so little Peter has a lot of time to allocate freely. For example, 2 hours to study physics, 2 hours to study engineering, 2 hours to frantically brush up on exercises, 3 years of college entrance examination and 5 years of simulation. Lu Chuang thinks this time allocation is very reasonable. Lu Chuang didn't disturb little Peter's study, and walked into the garage with the happy fat house water. Now that the technicians have found it, he should also look for the blueprints for making the super battlesuit. As for where to find the super battlesuit crafting blueprint, in this regard, Lu Chuang has long had an idea. But before that, he needs to make some advance preparations. That night, Stoke Group Industrial Zone, District Number 16. A blonde and capable white-collar woman came in, followed by several men in black uniforms. A group of people walked quickly into the deepest part of the industrial area and came to an iron gate. The blonde woman tried to swipe her card in, but found that it failed. She looked at a middle-aged man behind her in a panic. "Agent Phil Coulson, here it is, but my card won't work." Phil Coulson didn't speak. He directly took out a small device and installed it on the lock of the iron door, then led the blonde woman back a few steps. Boom. The door lock was instantly blown open. Holding a pistol, Phil Coulson was the first to push open the iron door and walked in, followed by several men in black. Judging from their gun-holding postures, it was obvious that they had received the most professional training. Immediately afterwards, they saw a pair of rough steel armor, which seemed to be assembled from various fragments, and Phil Coulson said with a serious expression, "Miss Potts, it is indeed as you said. Oba Destine is the man behind the kidnapping of Tony Stark, and he's also making steel armor." While speaking, Phil Coulson gestured to his colleagues with his eyes. They are from the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau, referred to as SHIELD, an agent organization that is responsible for handling some special incidents, and they are all agents of SHIELD this time. The mission is to cooperate with Tony Stark's assistant to arrest Opadri Stan as a dangerous man. But their mission wasn't just to capture Obadestine. There is one more important thing, that is to get this steel armor technical drawing. Then protect its technology. Yes, protect it. After all, there are too many problems involved in this technology, and they must not let some people with bad intentions get it, so they must protect it. As for the place of protection, don't think too much about it. Of course it is their shield, because there is no place that is safer than their shield. It doesn't matter whether other people believe it or not, they do believe it anyway. Following a cue from Phil Coulson, several SHIELD agents immediately dispersed to search for the technical blueprints of the steel armor. Ah! Just then, they suddenly heard Potts screaming. Following the prestige, they saw 2 rays of light glowing in the dark corner. With the sound of mechanical operation, the outline of a huge monster gradually became clear. A steel titan more than 3 meters high appeared in front of their eyes, exuding a pervasive glow. The cold steel breath. Potts didn't sit on the ground with frightened legs like the heroine in the movie, but ran out screaming all the way. I don't know how she did it while wearing high heels. Seeing this giant steel armor, Phil Coulson instantly thought of the broken steel armor just now. Isn't this just an enlarged version of plagiarism? Boom. 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 Without thinking about it, Phil Coulson and several S.H.I.E.L.D. agents immediately shot at the giant steel armor. Their bullets, however, only spattered a spark on the steel casing and did no harm. And their actions seemed to have angered this ferocious steel beast. The huge figure suddenly rioted and rushed to their position. Because the aisle of the research institute was too narrow, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent standing at the front had no time to dodge, and the whole person directly was thrown against the wall. Seeing that the strength of the two sides was not at the same level at all, Phil Coulson made a decisive decision and immediately jumped over the fence of the passage to the side, narrowly avoiding the impact of the giant steel armor. Fortunately, this pair of giant steel armor didn't pay attention to his intentions. The pair of powerful steel giant palms directly tore through the ceiling above, and dazzling flames emerged from the soles of the feet, driving the huge body from the ground to the ground. It's exaggerated. Looking at the hole in the ceiling, Phil Coulson stood up awkwardly. He didn't expect that this mission would be so thrilling, and he needed to face such a terrifying steel monster, the power of which was simply beyond the reach of ordinary people. Glancing at the corpses of his colleagues, Phil Coulson exhaled slowly. Years of working as an agent made him used to such scenes. He quickly suppressed his emotions, and looked at the two S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who also avoided the impact. You guys continue to search for the technical blueprint of the steel armor, and I will report to the director. Bubu. Accompanied by a slight gunshot, two S.H.I.E.L.D. agents suddenly fell before Phil Coulson's eyes. Phil Coulson's pupils shrank suddenly, and he quickly drew his gun and pointed it backwards. I saw a figure slowly walking out of the dark shadows. Tony Stark. To be precise, it was a Tony Stark head cut out from nowhere, and then pasted on a mask, disguised as Tony Stark in such a way that an idiot could see it. Who are you? Phil Coulson gripped his pistol tightly and asked with a vigilant face. Lu Chuang, who was wearing a mask, said in a low voice, as you can see, I am Tony Stark. Phil Coulson. Silent if you didn't say it, I really didn't see it. At this moment, the two sides are in a state of intense confrontation. Phil Coulson stared at Lu Chuang closely. This attacker was able to quietly eliminate two S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. His strength should not be underestimated, but he is a high-level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. after all, and his emotional changes will not be shown on his face. He intends to put some pressure on Lu Chuang in such a confrontational state, so as to find a flaw and kill him. And Lu Chuang also stared at Phil Coulson for a long time. Suddenly, he said suddenly, come closer, I think you look familiar. Phil Coulson frowned. Did the other party know him? After thinking for a while, Phil Coulson took a step forward, because there is more light here, which is convenient for him to observe. Seeing the light hitting the top of Phil Coulson's head, Lu Chuang's expression suddenly enlightened. This hairline, you're Phil Coulson. Silent. Phil Coulson was silent. He couldn't understand why Lu Chuang could recognize himself through the hairline. When did the hairline become a sign to recognize him? Here Lu Chuang has already recognized the identity of Phil Coulson, this S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who has made guest appearances all over the world and can meet any major event, especially the iconic hairline. It is difficult for Lu Chuang not to recognize him. Seeing that he is a familiar character, Lu Chuang took the lead in expressing his friendliness. I have no malicious intentions. It was just an anesthesia injection. They will wake up after a while. My gun is a kind gun. It can't kill people. Hearing Lu Chuang's words, Phil Coulson glanced at the two S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and could indeed see and breathe. Seeing this, Phil Coulson's heart moved slightly. Since it was just an anesthesia injection, he didn't need to worry about the consequences of shooting. At most he was just anesthetized. At this time, Lu Chuang took out another pistol. This is my pistol, don't worry, it's full of real bullets, I guarantee you can die completely. Phil Coulson immediately dropped the idea in his head. He felt that this guy was full of malice, and he must not act rashly. However, Phil Coulson didn't want to continue this stalemate. After all, he didn't know when the giant armor would come back. Now was the best time for him to look for the steel armor design drawings, and he didn't want to waste it like this. Since you have no malice, what is your purpose? Whatever your purpose is, I am what it is. Phil Coulson said without hesitation. We are here to capture Obito. Lu Chuang nodded seriously. Coincidentally, I'm also here to arrest Obito. Silent, the two looked at each other, and they were sure that the other party came for the steel armor design blueprint. After a moment of silence, Lu Chuang suddenly proposed. Since everyone is here to arrest Obito, Why don't we search for Obito here together? Facing the black muzzle of the gun, Phil Coulson pretended to think about it. Can. When they said this, they all tacitly ignored the giant steel armor that just ran out. After all, what they were looking for was Obito, so what did they have to do with the giant steel armor? Ever since, the two pointed guns at each other, and began to search for the blueprint of the steel armor named Obito in the Research Institute. When passing by the broken steel armor, Lu Chuang deliberately checked it with the game system. Target does not meet the conditions. No accident. This pair of steel armor does not meet the requirements at all. After about 5 minutes, the two finally found a computer in the corner of the Research Institute, which showed that a password was required, and it seemed that there was a high probability that the design drawings of the steel armor were recorded in it. In an instant, the two looked at each other at the same time. Lu Chuang coughed. Well, my legs are a little numb, and I need to rest here for a while. You don't need to worry about me. It's more important to catch this dangerous guy, Obito. Phil Coulson didn't intend to move, and smiled gently. It's okay. I can have someone take you out first, as long as I arrest Obito here. Hypocritical. *2 The two cursed inwardly. Lu Chuang looked at the password on the display screen, and suggested, I think it is indeed important to arrest Obito, but it is also important to find evidence of Obito's crime. Do you mind if I check this computer? Do you know the password? I don't know, but I'm a well-known computer genius in the community, and a mere 6-digit password can't trouble me at all. Lu Chuang's tone was full of confidence. This is still a technical person. Phil Coulson made a precise judgment in an instant, and a brainstorm was set off in his mind. He was collecting as much information as possible on the other party, so as to infer what organization the other party might be from. This is the routine operation of their agent. I don't mind. After all, Obito's criminal evidence is also very important, Phil Coulson said righteously. Lu Chuang let out a hush inwardly, nodded on the surface, and pressed the keyboard very solemnly. 123,456. Wrong password, Phil Coulson. Lu Chuang said in disbelief. How is it possible? Phil Coulson almost lost his grip on the pistol. How surprised are you? No one would set such a simple password. Wait. I think it might be 6 zeros. This is my bank card password. Lu Chuang refused to give up and wanted to continue trying to crack the password. Crackling. Just as Lu Chuang's attention was focused on the computer screen, a strong electric current suddenly flashed across his body. His body trembled violently a few times, and he fell straight down. Seeing Lu Chuang, who was stunned, Phil Coulson breathed a sigh of relief and put away the electric shock device in his hand. Phil Coulson did not dare to let Lu Chuang continue to try, because he knew that the passwords of many security systems can only be entered 3 times at most. If Lu Chuang enters such weird numbers as 6 zeros and 6 sixes, his work tonight will be in vain. Phil Coulson chose not to kill Lu Chuang directly. He needs to bring this suspicious attacker back and find out why he came here. As far as he knew, this research institute was secretly established by Obito to study steel armor, and even their shield had just learned about it from Tony Stark's assistant. What did the other party learn from it? Channels are aware of the existence of this department. Due to the urgency of time, Phil Coulson took out a small instrument similar to a USB flash drive from his pocket and inserted it into the computer without wasting too much time. As a bunch of codes appeared, the password of the computer was quickly deciphered and unlocked. You still have a way, you actually untied it. A familiar voice came from behind. Phil Coulson was startled. He wanted to turn around but felt a chill in his thigh. He saw an anesthesia needle stuck firmly in his thigh. He turned his head with difficulty and saw Lu Chuang's figure. The other party wasn't in a coma at all. Phil Coulson's gradually drowsy eyes showed a trace of doubt. His electric shock device can release an electric current that is powerful enough to stun an adult in an instant. Come over? You. Don't blame me, it was you who didn't talk about Wood first. Lu Chuang spread his hands innocently, and Phil Coulson wanted to call for help, but he felt that his body was losing consciousness, and he didn't even have the strength to raise his hands, and soon fell into a coma. Lu Chuang checked the computer that unlocked the password, and sure enough, it was full of various data of the steel armor, including the design drawings of the steel armor. He couldn't help sighing in his heart. As expected of S.H.I.E.L.D., even the system of Stark Industries can be cracked. If it weren't for Phil Coulson's enthusiastic help, Even if I found this computer, I would probably just stare blankly in the end. Thinking of this, Lu Chuang was full of gratitude to Phil Coulson. In return, he changed the posture of the unconscious Phil Coulson, and put the other's hands on his forehead, blocking the brain door that can reflect light under the light, and avoiding the embarrassment of the other party after being found. Then, Lu Chuang pulled out the instrument from Phil Coulson, and replaced it with the USB flash drive he brought. This little gadget bought from Weasel has no hips. After inserting the USB flash drive, Lu Chuang does not need to control it. The data in the computer starts to be automatically copied and pasted into the new hard drive. It only takes a few minutes to download it all. While downloading, Lu Chuang browsed the information on the steel armor. He found that this pair of giant steel armor named Iron Overlord was imitated from the Mark I that Tony Stark built in the cave in Afghanistan. Its technology is it's a fake that was ripped off from Mark I. Although there are some technical flaws, it is still of great reference value. At least it can provide a clear direction for little Peter. However, there is still a core problem with the Iron Overlord armor that has not been resolved. That is the most important power supply system. You can guess without thinking about it. It will definitely consume a lot of energy to drive this pair of cumbersome giant steel armor. It will not work just by filling a large amount of fuel. You must have a durable and stable energy supply source. Lu Chuang thought of the big light bulb on Iron Man's chest, the small arc reactor that can provide 3 billion joules per second, but the problem is that the small arc reactor belongs to Tony Stark's personal technology, and it seems not easy to get it. Boom. At this time, the ceiling collapsed. 2 human-shaped steel armors, one large and one small, fell from the sky. Sparks and lightning passed in front of Lu Chuang's eyes, crashing out of the outer wall of the research institute with unabated inertia. Through the huge hole in the institute, Lu Chuang could see the 2 steel armors rushing up the highway outside the Stark industrial area, and finally stopped in the middle of the crowd of vehicles. Looking carefully, that pair of steel armor with huge amounts of steel is exactly Iron King's armor, and the other pair of golden red steel armor, without thinking about it, must be Tony Stark's Mark III steel armor. Looking at the big dazzling light bulbs on the chests of the 2 steel armors, Lu Chuang raised his brows. Isn't that a coincidence? On the expressway, everyone was stunned by such a sudden situation, and they didn't react until the Iron Overlord armor suddenly overturned the vehicle blocking the road. Suddenly, there was a burst of screams and horns on the highway. The Iron Overlord armor didn't pay attention to the panicked people. The mechanical eyes stared at the gold-red color steel armor in front of him, and a wild and wanton laughter came from inside the Iron Overlord armor. I love this outfit. Tony, look at your excellent masterpiece. You closed the weapons department and turned around to make even more powerful weapons. You are as hypocritical as your dead father. Shut up, you are not qualified to mention him. After the mechanized processing of the armor, Tony Stark's voice became cold and calm, and no one noticed the tense look under his steel mask. At the moment, the small arc reactor on his chest was temporarily installed. Originally, the latest small arc reactor he made was taken away by Obito. Now he is using an old version, and the energy in it has long been exhausted. Too much. And his steel armor is the latest Mark III, which consumes far more energy than before. This amount of energy won't last long at all. If this continues, his steel armor is likely to break. Turn on the energy supply, and then he will completely lose his resistance ability. Boom. Just as Tony Stark was thinking of a solution, Iron King's armor was like a steel beast, roaring and rushing towards him, and the ground was smashed to pieces with terrifying force. Caught off guard, Tony Stark only had time to raise his arms to block. Boom. The 2 pairs of steel armor collided, making a dull crashing sound. Occupying the size advantage of the huge tonnage, the Iron Overlord armor easily knocked Tony Stark into the air, sending him flying more than 10 meters away. Before Tony Stark got up, he saw an anti-tank rocket rising from the steel back of the Iron King's armor. Under the lock of the optical sight, the anti-tank rocket blasted straight towards him with tail flames. Boom. Accompanied by huge amounts of explosions, the Mark III was blown into the sky, and then fell heavily to the ground. At this moment, Tony Stark was in a very aggrieved mood. Smart. He could tell at a glance that the Iron Overlord armor in front of him was a shoddy fake. The color and shape were copied from his Mark I, and even the small arc reactor on his chest was directly snatched from him. Go. Damn plagiarists can't use their own brains. However, the most uncomfortable thing is that although he can find a lot of technical problems with Iron King's armor, his Mark III just can't do anything to the opponent. After all, the huge size of Iron Overlord armor is not empty. It just depends on the size and thickness of the armor to support the overall defense. In the case of insufficient energy, the firepower of the Mark III can't explode the turtle shell at all. Seeing the armor of the Iron King coming again, Tony Stark couldn't bear it. The original author was beaten on the ground by the plagiarist. Is there anything more frustrating than this? Boom. The golden red armor was blown away again. At this moment, the shell of the Mark III is full of damage marks, and Tony Stark is about to be puked up. He decided that he must have a whole big steel armor when he went back. Accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps, the Iron King armor came in front of Tony Stark. The mechanical arm grabbed the leg of Mark III and smashed it back and forth. Tony Stark felt like a broken ragdoll. Stop kneading. Looking at Tony Stark, who was being beaten by himself, Obito's proud voice came from inside the armor. Although you came up with it first, mine is more advanced than you in every aspect. The corners of Tony Stark's mouth twitched. Maybe Obito is an excellent businessman, but he must have been insulated from scientists in his life. Which I can see that this turtle shell is more advanced than my Mark III. Iron King's armor slammed down, and his broad soles directly stepped on Mark III, as if he intended to crush Tony Stark to death. Feeling the pressure coming from his chest, Tony Stark hurriedly said, "JARVIS, gather energy to your chest." Hearing his order, the artificial intelligence JARVIS installed on Mark III acted immediately, and the big light bulb on the chest quickly gathered light. Bang. Suddenly, a sniper bullet bypassed the Mark III and hit the head of the Iron Overlord armor with precision. The bullet exploded suddenly, and the heavy Iron Overlord armor was directly blasted away. And Tony Stark also used this to break free from the control. He was implicated by the explosion and flew up again, but this time he reacted quickly. The palms of his hands lit up, and he was floating in midair. Tony Stark was surprised. JARVIS, what's going on? The playback screen just now was displayed inside the mask, and JARVIS explained at the same time, "Sir, it is a modified sniper bullet, which came from the direction of 12 o'clock. The moment before you hit you, the bullet suddenly turned and hit the target. The warhead produced a powerful explosive force. Bullet turns." Tony Stark blinked blankly. He can understand that the modified sniper bullets will explode, but what is the scientific principle of the bullet turning? However, the Iron Overlord armor over there has already climbed up. Under the bombardment of the sniper bullet, there were only a few scratches on the outer shell of the Iron Overlord armor, which did not affect the normal operation of the Iron Overlord armor at all. Obito didn't have the artificial intelligence assistance of JARVIS. He thought it was Tony Stark's attack just now. He looked at Tony Stark floating in the air and laughed wantonly. "Not bad, improved, but I also improved something myself." As he said that, dazzling flames erupted from the soles of Iron Overlord armor, and he was about to lift up the heavy steel armor. Another shoddy copycat product. Gritting his teeth, Tony Stark ordered the JARVIS to blast off. Not to be outdone, Obito followed closely behind. His legs sprayed like a rocket, emitting a large amount of black exhaust, blackening the people below. "It's outrageous." Lu Chuang, who was squatting on the roof, put away his sniper rifle and muttered to himself. Beside him, an expensive video camera was quietly placed, and the lens was already aimed at the highway, recording all the scenes just now. Lu Chuang originally wanted to observe the performance of Tony Stark's Mark III, but after observing it, he realized that the steel armor was outrageous. Especially the black technology like shock absorption system. Under normal circumstances, if the steel armor has been bombed so many times, Tony Stark inside would have a concussion even if he didn't die. But Tony Stark is still alive and well, as if the blood tank of the character is the steel armor. As long as the steel armor is not rotten, he is destined to be unscathed, just like the explosive clothing in a certain game. The same is true for the Iron Overlord armor. Although it is a plagiarized product, the shock absorption system does not seem to be weak. When he takes it back to Peter, he can learn from it. The plagiarized version, among other things, will definitely catch Tony Stark on the spot pissed off. Definitely, he couldn't just sit back and watch Tony Stark get punched. If one was accidentally killed, Wouldn't his achievement task be in vain, and his efforts during this period would be in vain? Lu Chuang picked up the camera, and when he looked up, he saw a golden-red figure quickly falling towards him. Tony Stark tried his best to maintain his balance in the sky, and finally fell crookedly on the roof, causing countless flames on the ground, and finally stopped in front of Lu Chuang. Activate backup power. With the sound of JARVIS, the small arc reactor that had gradually dimmed turned on again. At the same time, JARVIS reminded, "Mister, please pay attention to your front." Tony Stark looked up suspiciously and saw a familiar face. To be honest, it was the first time that Tony Stark was frightened by his own face. The headshot of a magazine that he didn't know where was taken out was full of wrinkles, and 2 holes were cut out in his eyes, and he was looking at himself with his 2 eyes. Tony Stark hurriedly distanced himself. "Who are you?" Lu Chuang said seriously. "As you can see, I am Tony Stark." "Tony Stark? You are Tony Stark, and who am I?" Seeing the sniper rifle on Lu Chuang's back, Tony Stark instantly guessed that the other party was the one who shot just now. Since the bullet bypassed him and attacked Opati, and rescued him, his vigilance suddenly dropped a lot. Less, at least for now it doesn't appear to be the enemy. But just in case, Tony Stark did not take off the Mark III, but continued to maintain the basic operation of the Mark III with spare energy. Seeing that Lu Chuang was holding a camera in his hand, Tony Stark raised his eyebrows. "What are you recording?" "Definitely recorded the scene of Tony Stark being hanged and beaten. This is a rare and precious picture." Lu Chuang said excitedly. "When you become famous as Iron Man, I will play it 3,000 times in New York Square, especially the scene where you were smashed by that giant steel armor just now. I promise you, it will definitely become an emoticon package in everyone's mobile phone." Tony Stark felt that he was still lacking in consideration. This guy is definitely an enemy, and a very hostile kind. "You know it's me." Tony Stark frowned. At this time, he didn't take off Mark III. How did the other party know that he was Tony Stark? Lu Chuang pouted. "How fresh, all the dogs in my neighborhood know you are Iron Man." Tony Stark looked disbelieving. In his opinion, he should have done a good job of keeping the secrecy. For this reason, he thought about it carefully. At present, the only people who know that he has steel armor are his good friend Colonel Rhodes, his assistant Potts, Obito, the many terrorists who kidnapped him before, and the many detectives from the King's Bureau. Member. Well, I admit that there is a small problem with my confidentiality work. Tony Stark generously admitted that it is impossible to deny it with his flamboyant personality. He doesn't care how many people know about his identity. What trouble? But I'm curious, what is the Iron Man you're talking about? Perhaps because he felt that there was no threat of Iron Man's armor, Tony Stark felt very relaxed. He noticed that Lu Chuang kept mentioning the name Iron Man. For some reason, he felt that this name seemed to be particularly destined for him. Lu Chuang explained. "Shouldn't a superhero have a superhero name? I think the name Iron Man is quite suitable for you. If you don't think it's suitable, why not call it Optimus Prime? I think this name is the name." "Iron Man is a nice name." Tony Stark directly interrupted Lu Chuang's words, and told JARVIS, "Register this name, and this name will be mine from now on." Lu Chuang was startled. Is this the decisiveness of capitalism? Seeing what Tony Stark did, Lu Chuang suddenly had a bold idea. If you register the titles of Green Titan, Black Widow, and Hawkeye in advance, and when these superheroes become popular in the future, you can open a store with these names, such as a Green Titan hat shop, and use these superhero signs to do business. Don't you want to make a lot of money? Lu Chuang thought about it, but reluctantly gave up this tempting idea. The main reason is that those superheroes will smash his store after they know about it, and directly stage an Avengers in his store. Seeing that Lu Chuang was still videotaping, Tony Stark said in a bad tone. "Although I like the name you gave me very much, I want to remind you that your video has seriously violated my portrait rights, and I can ask you to your lawyer sued you for infringement." Lu Chuang said disdainfully. "It's as if someone doesn't have a lawyer. One of my lawyers can beat your lawyers 100 times, and the process doesn't take a breather. As long as he sends lawyer Ma, beating 100 people is really not a problem." Tony Stark's eyes widened. For the first time in his life, he saw someone more arrogant than himself. It is no exaggeration to say that his legal team is definitely the top legal team in America. He doesn't think that the other party's lawyers can beat his own legal team, and he said that one can beat 100 lawyers. What kind of joke are you talking about? Just when Tony Stark was about to refute, he saw Lu Chuang suddenly turned his head and ran away, not forgetting to point the camera in his direction while running. Before Tony Stark could react, he heard a heavy bang behind him. Tony Stark just turned his head and saw the huge figure in Iron King's armor in the mechanical arm that could grab his leg. Tony Stark. All of a sudden, Tony Stark lost control of his whole body, and when he was grabbed by the Iron King's armor, he was thrown indiscriminately. JARVIS kept reporting. The left arm is severely damaged, most of the weapons are disabled. Incendiary bomb. Tony Stark roared, and Mark III's legs shot out a lot of flames in an instant. The scorching heat burned the Iron King's armor, forcing the Iron King's armor to loosen its arms, and it was only then that Stark struggled to break free. JARVIS did not forget to remind. Sir, there is only 2% of the spare energy left, which can barely maintain the small arc reactor in your chest. If it is reduced to the lowest value, the small arc reactor will immediately lose its function. The iron sheet in your body, there is a 78% chance of flowing into the heart. I know. Tony Stark didn't know how dangerous his situation was, and he might die at any time. Being in trouble, he had long forgotten the existence of Lu Chuang. Taking advantage of the smoke from the incendiary bomb, Tony Stark immediately contacted his most trusted assistant. Potts, go to the center console and turn on all the circuits, and I will tell you when I leave the roof, and then you press the switch button. Potts' tone was a little nervous. What do you want to do? I'm going to blow up this place, otherwise there is no way to solve Opadri. After notifying Potts, Tony Stark jumped on the Iron King armor at the right time. Under the analysis of JARVIS, he quickly found the gap in the Iron Overlord armor. He thrust his left arm through the gap and pulled out several key connecting wires, which directly disabled the detection system of the Iron Overlord armor. Damn Tony. Even the sound that has been mechanically processed cannot conceal Obito's anger at the moment. Losing his vision, he could only grab back with his feeling, grabbed Tony Stark, who was trying to dodge, and threw him on the ground, and stepped on him with his thick mechanical legs again, completely cutting off Tony Stark's back path. What's more terrible is that the light of Mark III is gradually dimming, and the remaining energy is no longer enough to maintain the normal operation of Mark III. The steel armor that was originally used to protect him has now become a steel prison instead. It's over. Looking at the oppressive Iron King armor, Tony Stark feels despair. At the same time, he also thought of Lu Chuang, who was holding a sniper rifle. At this time, the other party should still be hiding somewhere on the roof. Tony Stark remembered that Lu Chuang had a modified sniper bullet, which could explode with powerful explosive power. If the opponent cooperated with him at the beginning, he would have a chance to control the Iron Overlord armor. But now, Tony Stark gritted his teeth. The shell of the Iron Overlord armor is too thick. Even with that kind of explosive power, it is difficult to damage the Iron Overlord armor. There is no possibility of victory at all. But the problem is that Obito will take the initiative to show his head, and he is not a fool. Sheesh. At this moment, the Iron Overlord armor in front of him slowly opened, revealing Obito, who was sitting in the cockpit. Since the detection system of the Iron Overlord armor failed, he could only observe with his own eyes. However, he would love to do it. Seeing Tony Stark struggling under his feet, Obito smiled cruelly, and controlled the mechanical arm to remove Tony Stark's steel helmet directly. Tony, I want to witness your death with my own eyes. I want you to watch me how to kill myself with the weapon you made. After taking off the steel helmet, Obito expected to see Tony Stark's remorse or fear. However, Obito noticed that Tony Stark was looking at him strangely. Tony, is this your last struggle? Tony Stark had a stiff expression. No, I just feel a little cold in my head, can you help me put the helmet back on? Boom. With a gunshot, Obito's cruel expression suddenly froze. Blood flowed slowly from the hole in his forehead. Slow footsteps came, and Tony Stark saw Lu Chuang again. At the moment, Lu Chuang held the camera in his left hand and the pistol in his right hand, and shook his head helplessly. Who has a mech without a helmet? Tony Stark, who was not wearing a helmet, expressed silence. His helmet was forcibly removed. Without the driver's control, the Iron King's armor lost its balance and fell down. The pressure on Tony Stark's chest dropped sharply, but the energy of the small arc reactor was no longer enough. It was not enough to drive the Mark III at all, and he couldn't stand up at all under the weight of hundreds of kilograms of metal. After several unsuccessful attempts, Tony Stark had no choice but to turn to Lu Chuang, who was the only one present. "Hey man, how about a hand?" "Wait, don't worry." Lu Chuang took the video camera, kept close-ups on Tony Stark's face, and muttered, "This is a precious video of Tony Stark. It will almost become a precious video of his life. If I don't have money to spend in the future, selling this video will definitely make a lot of money." Tony Stark took a deep breath, resisting the urge to curse. "If you delete the video now, I can transfer you a sum of money on the spot, definitely higher than anyone's bid." Lu Chuang shook his head. "I refuse. It's too bad to sell it now. It will be worth more money in the future." Instead of selling it now, he might as well wait until Tony Stark gave birth to a daughter, and then bring this video to Tony Stark. In order not to lose face in front of his daughter, maybe Tony Stark will give him the entire Stark industry. Although Tony Stark didn't know what Lu Chuang was thinking, he could feel full of malice. "Don't worry, I won't release this video casually. At most, it's just my personal collection. Come on, smile at the camera, or I'll draw a bastard on your face." Lu Chuang took the camera and took a photo with Tony Stark in the same frame, and then put away the camera contentedly, completely ignoring Tony Stark's expression of wanting to kill someone. "Okay, it's time to get down to business." Lu Chuang clapped his hands. In front of Tony Stark, Lu Chuang directly grabbed the small arc reactor on the chest of Iron King's armor. Different from the one on Tony Stark's chest, this small arc reactor was extremely full of energy, shining brightly in Lu Chuang's hand. Seeing this scene, Wani Stark's face gradually became gloomy. "So your goal is the small arc reactor?" Lu Chuang said innocently. "Don't say that. Make me look like a villain. This is my personal spoils. I can't take it too much, right?" Tony Stark sneered. "This is something I made with my own hands. It doesn't belong to Opadri at all. Opadri just snatched it away. If anything, it should be returned to its owner." "Okay. You stretch out your hand, and I'll give it back to you." Tony Stark snorted coldly, and tried to raise his right hand, but the mechanical arm didn't move at all. Tony Stark had no expression on his face. He vowed to develop a lighter steel armor when he returned. The lighter the better. For example, nanomaterials are very good. Seeing that Tony Stark was silent, Lu Chuang put the small arc reactor into his back pocket, and looked at the Iron King's armor with some distress. After all, the ready-made steel armor was in front of him, and it would be much easier to imitate it. It's not that Lu Chuang has never thought about driving the Iron King armor back, but the problem is that this thing is too big. It looks like a tank when driving. It's basically impossible not to be discovered. If only this steel armor was smaller. Lu Chuang turned his head and looked at Tony Stark. To be precise, it was the Mark III given to him. "Tony, do you think this armor is too heavy? Why don't I take it off for you?" Tony Stark shuddered, and instantly sensed Lu Chuang's malicious intentions. "No, I think this is pretty good." Seeing the firm look in Tony Stark's eyes, Lu Chuang had no choice but to give up the idea in his mind. Even if Tony Stark was willing to give him the Mark III, Lu Chuang would not dare to take it. You know, all of Tony Stark's steel armors are assisted by artificial intelligence. JARVIS is a system, and each pair of steel armors is supervised by JARVIS in front of Tony Stark. However, Lu Chuang also has a backup option, which is the Mark I in the Research Institute. The steel armor was made by Tony Stark in the cave and will not be supervised by JARVIS. Silent at this moment, Lu Chuang heard the noise of propellers. Looking around, 2 helicopters with shield symbols printed on them flew from a distance. It is estimated that after Phil Coulson and others lost contact, SHIELD sent additional personnel. "I'll slip away first. Come out to have tea together when I have time." Lu Chuang jumped directly from the roof to the research institute below without hesitation, and soon disappeared from Tony Stark's sight. After seeing Lu Chuang leave, Tony Stark's tense nerves finally relaxed. Who the hell is this guy? Tony Stark thought to himself. It's a pity that his steel helmet was taken off, and he couldn't collect the opponent's information with the help of Favis. Inside the institute, through the broken iron gate, a dozen fully armed SHIELD agents broke in. The leader is a bald detective. He is the highest level agent here, responsible for commanding this operation. Seeing the dead body of his colleague in the corridor, the bald agent did not change his face, but made a gesture to let the agents go deeper into the institute. While he looked at the iron chain not far away, it disappeared in the above 10 strings of events. Not long after, a SHIELD agent came over. "Sir, we found Agent Phil Coulson." The bald detective nodded, followed the SHIELD agent to the corner of the research institute, and then he saw the computer that was broken into several pieces. It was obviously damaged maliciously by someone, and the host computer was destroyed beyond its original state. At the same time, he also saw Phil Coulson lying upright on the ground with his hands on his forehead. Under the illumination of the lights, it seems very peaceful. Seeing this somewhat special posture, the bald detective couldn't help but pause. What's up with him? Preliminary judgment shows that Detective Phil Coulson should have been attacked by the enemy, and after a fierce resistance, he was anesthetized and fell into a coma. The bald detective looked at Phil Coulson's posture again, and he felt that Phil Coulson didn't resist too much. Putting aside his distracting thoughts, the bald detective took out a special potion and placed it under Phil Coulson's nose skillfully. Stimulated by the strong chemical smell, Phil Coulson gradually came to his senses. Seeing the appearance of the bald agent and SHIELD agents, he quickly reacted and said to the bald agent, "Sitwell, I have important things need to go back and report to the director." The Tricurved Wing Building, the headquarters of the Strategic Homeland Defense Offensive and Logistics Agency. "Sir, this is the entire report on this operation. After inspection, it is basically confirmed that Obito was behind the kidnapping of Tony Stark. A group of terrorists named 10 Rings were responsible for this attack, but something went wrong in the negotiations, and Obito had already silenced the group of terrorists before that." In the director's office located in the middle of the headquarters, Phil Coulson was reporting the information he had received to a one-eyed, bald black man in front of him. This person is his boss, Director Nick Fury, the head of SHIELD. Nick Fury flipped through the report in his hand, with a calm expression on his face. "Obito is dead." Yes, the fatal wound was a gunshot wound on the forehead. The bullet was not numbered, and the source could not be found. According to Tony Stark's brief account, Obito was killed by an assailant wearing a mask and died in that Iron Overlord Steel 737, in the cab of the iron armor. Hearing Phil Coulson's words, Nick Fury's one eye gave a strange look. Through the information in this report, he can fully see how powerful the combat ability of that pair of steel armor is, and its defense power is even more incapable of blasting missiles, and such a defense power. The driver was killed by a headshot. Nick Fury is a little speechless, but he still maintains the image of the iron-blooded and cold-faced director on the surface. Who was the attacker? Tony Stark is unwilling to disclose, and he took the initiative to hide a lot of details. The reason is unknown for the time being, but afterwards we found that the steel armor was no longer functional, and it seemed that an important energy source was missing. According to my judgment, this energy source is very important. It may be taken away by the attacker, and the attacker who stole the blueprint from the research institute is very likely to be the same person. Design drawing, energy source. Nick Fury looked gloomy, at least according to Phil Coulson. To be honest, his black face is hard to keep from being gloomy, so that he looks like he is calculating others all the time. Even Phil Coulson, who has been with him for many years, sometimes can't help but think of the other party. Are you trying to figure out some conspiracy again? Phil Coulson continued to report. Another point is that the incident last night has been reported. At that time, many people witnessed the battle between 2 pairs of steel armor. Now the media are reporting this incident. Most media believe that this time the incident is related to Tony Stark, and the military city intends to ask Torzonsta to hold a press conference to issue a clarification statement. Nick Fury tapped his fingers on the table, and said in a calm tone, "Cooperate with the military to hold a press conference and create an alibi for Tony Stark. As for Obito death, it was covered up by an accident, and we cannot disclose any relevant information for the time being." Immediately afterwards, Nick Fury looked at the report, which stated that the attacker was a masked man with Tony Stark's head on it. Start to investigate the identity of the attacker, and investigate whether there are traces of other organizations behind it. Clear. In the afternoon, little Peter came to Lu Chuang's house as usual. He tiptoed and knocked on the door. After waiting for a while, Lu Chuang opened the door and said with a mysterious face, "Little Peter, you are finally here, come in quickly, Big brother will show you a big baby. Seeing the strange expression on Lu Chuang's face, little Peter swallowed. He remembered that Aunt May once told him that if he saw an adult with such an expression, he should turn around and run to the police. Out of familiarity with Lu Chuang, little Peter still held back the fear and worry in his heart, trembling, and walked out of the room. Lu Chuang didn't notice little Peter's condition, walked all the way to the door of the garage, opened the door and greeted little Peter. The things are inside, come and have a look. This is the workshop of superhero. This time little Peter didn't think too much, but looked at Lu Chuang with glowing eyes. Can I really go in? In Lu Chuang's house, little Peter has wanted to see the superhero's workshop more than once. In his imagination, the superhero's workshop is a secret base, just like the superhero in the comics, with all kinds of cool equipment and uniforms. It's a pity that Lu Chuang never mentioned it. Little Peter thought it was a superhero's secret base, and outsiders couldn't enter it, so he didn't take the initiative to ask to go in and have a look. But now Lu Chuang actually said that he could take a look, and little Peter was so excited that his little hands were shaking. Lu Chuang smiled slightly. Before that, you have to remember that you can't disclose everything that happened afterwards to anyone. If the superhero's secret base is exposed, we will be in a very dangerous situation, understand? This kind of dialogue once again touched the nerve of little Peter that belongs to the superhero. Little Peter clenched his fists and nodded vigorously. Understood. Okay. Come in with me. With excitement, little Peter followed Lu Chuang into the garage, and saw all kinds of firearms and weapons hanging on the walls, and little Peter even saw an exaggerated bazooka. Little Peter was dumbfounded. This superhero base seemed a little different from what he had imagined. How does it feel more like an armory? At this time, little Peter suddenly noticed that in the depths of the garage, a pair of steel armor was hung in the air by iron chains, exuding a metal texture all over his body. Although it looked very dilapidated, its metal mecha shape was I can touch the point of little Peter at once. Silent little Peter breathed heavily and pointed at the steel armor tremblingly. Lu Chuang stretched out his hands and introduced grandly. Yes, this pair of steel armor is the super battlesuit I have been mentioning. After being confirmed, little Peter quickly asked, is this your superhero equipment? Lu Chuang shook his head. No, I borrowed this from a superhero on purpose. He is very nice. He heard that you were going to make a super battlesuit, so he hugged my leg and begged me to take this steel armor away. Little Peter was amazed. This superhero must be too good. Worthy of being a superhero. Little Peter didn't doubt it, and stared at the steel armor intently. Can I touch it? Definitely, just touch it. Little Peter stretched out his hand to touch the steel armor, and the cold touch came from his fingertips, but he couldn't suppress little Peter's fiery heart at the moment. Just ask which boy can refuse the charm of mechs. But this was not over yet. Lu Chuang turned on the computer on the work desk, and a complete steel armor design drawing appeared on the screen. All the values were clearly marked, and various technical terms were enough to drive a layman crazy. However, little Peter stared wide-eyed and rushed to the computer impatiently. Although he could not understand it yet, it is not difficult to understand from the exploded view of the iron armor above. This turned out to be a design 1.7 diagram of a super battlesuit. Seeing little Peter's reaction, Lu Chuang was very satisfied. As long as you are interested, you will have the motivation to move forward. I think you can see it too. This is the design drawing of the super battlesuit, and I borrowed it from that enthusiastic superhero. It will be used as a reference for you to make super battlesuits in the future. Little Peter, people have high expectations for you. It's very high, don't disappoint that superhero's expectations. The steel armor is in the front, and the blueprint is in the back. Now little Peter is so excited that he is about to split his fork on the spot. He said firmly, I will definitely live up to his expectations. I want to make a super battlesuit. Seemingly sensing little Peter's decision, Lu Chuang was deeply touched and slapped his thigh fiercely. Okay. Now that the atmosphere is here, I have to announce one more thing. Today's exercises are doubled. Little Peter. Wake up, continue to update today. Regarding what happened in the Stoke Group industrial area last night, the official statement has been sent to everyone. Some witnesses claimed that a machine out of control happened in the Stoke Group industrial area last night. Fortunately, Tony Stark, a bodyguard. At the moment, the press conference jointly held by Stark Industry and the military is playing on the TV screen, and the spokesperson of the military is Colonel Rhodes, Tony Stark's military friend, who is also the future Tukao machine. After Rhodes talked nonsense, Tony Stark's figure appeared on the TV screen. He came to the speaking platform and casually read from the manuscript in his hand, but he was forcibly interrupted by a female reporter before he could say a few words. "I'm sorry, Mr. Stark, do you think we'll believe that?" Under the questioning of the female reporter, Tony Stark simply threw away the manuscript. "The actual situation is, I am Iron Man." After the words fell, the press conference exploded in an instant. Looking at Rhodes' face that was almost 13 black and charcoal, Lu Chuang knew without guessing that the other party must be scolding his mother right now. No way, who told him to have a flirtatious friend like Tony Stark? Little Peter shifted his eyes from the computer to the TV, and said excitedly, "Tony Stark is actually Iron Man, because..." When the two steel armors were fighting on the highway last night, some people who were not afraid of death took videos and posted them on the internet. These videos have long been aroused by major news. Little Peter also watched some videos at school this morning, and even cheered for Mark III in the video. After all, the shape of Mark III is really loved by Little Peter, making Little Peter a loyal fan of steel armor younger brother. But the Iron Overlord armor is different. It is old-fashioned and has no special features. It is not as handsome as Mark III. The only feature is the big guy. It looks like a villain in the comics. Little Peter swore at that time that the super battlesuit he made in the future must not be as ugly as the Iron King armor, otherwise it would be embarrassing to wear it out. Huh? Big guy? Little Peter seemed to remember something, and turned to look at the Iron King armor on the computer screen. Old-fashioned, featureless, bulky, isn't this the ugly steel armor in the video? Little Peter looked at Lu Chuang with a sad face. "You are lying. This is not given to me by superhero at all." Hearing this, Lu Chuang was stunned for a moment, and then realized, "I'm not lying to you. This is indeed a superhero's battlesuit, and you also know this superhero. It's Tony Stark on TV. You've seen it all. Just now he announced it's Iron Man. Tony Stark gave it to me." Little Peter couldn't believe it. "Definitely, if you don't believe me, I still have a video of Tony Stark here." Lu Chuang took out the video camera, pulled the progress bar of the finished video to the back, and handed it to Little Peter to see. As a result, Little Peter saw the scene of Iron King armor grabbing Mark III and smashing it. Little Peter. Seeing Little Peter's expression was not right, Lu Chuang looked at the camera. "Oh, I made a mistake, it's time to pull the stars." As he spoke, he pulled back the progress bar a bit. In the picture, the Iron Overlord armor firmly stomps on Mark III, just like a scene of hanging and beating. Under the inadvertent influence of Lu Chuang, Little Peter has long regarded Tony Stark as the target of pursuit. And today, Tony Stark announced that he is Iron Man. However, it is obviously two happy things. Why do they add up and become like this? Seeing Tony Stark and Iron Man being pressed to the ground by Iron Man's armor at the same time, unconsciously, the image of the two idols in Little Peter's heart was a little bit broken. Lu Chuang felt that Peter's enthusiasm should not be discouraged too much. After all, it is a good thing for him to have a goal, so he comforted him. "Don't look at Tony Stark being hammered. In fact, the huge amounts of steel armor is an imitation of his initial made of iron armor. This is it." Lu Chuang pointed to the Mark I that was hung by an iron chain. "So, in a sense, this steel armor blueprint also belongs to Tony Stark." Hearing his words, Little Peter finally felt better. Then, Lu Chuang looked serious. "Little Peter, do you know why Tony Stark gave you this design drawing?" Little Peter thought for a while. "In order to encourage me, I have to work hard." "Wrong. Remind me to be careful of such villains. Don't plagiarize." "It's still wrong. Your thinking is still too superficial." Lu Chuang shook his head and explained earnestly. "The purpose of his doing this is definitely to make you make a super battlesuit that can drop him, and then hit him on the ground. How is it possible? No one would like to be pushed to the ground and beaten." Little Peter looked disbelieving. "Although I am still young, you can't fool me." "Don't believe it, I have evidence here." Lu Chuang dragged the video to the end and handed it to Little Peter. "Look, after being hammered, you can see how happy he is smiling." Tony Stark's bitter face appeared on the screen in an instant. The smile could barely be seen by Little Peter, and what attracted more attention was the tattered Mark III on Tony Stark's body, matched with Tony Stark's smile. The whole picture, it looks abnormally 810 bleak.
He smiled so forcibly. It's not forced, but happy. Too happy to laugh. Lu Chuang corrected little Peter's words. Wait until you make a super battle suit and hit Tony Stark on the ground.
He will definitely be very happy in his heart, because this is the best tribute to idols from fans. Little Peter imagined the super battlesuit he made and hit Tony Stark on the ground. I have to say, it's really heart-wrenching. I see, I'm going to make a super battlesuit and hit Tony Stark on the ground. That's right, it's just this momentum. If Tony Stark knows, he'll be too happy to laugh. Lu Chuang patted his thigh excitedly, since the atmosphere is here. I went into the room to study. Before Lu Chuang finished speaking, little Peter ran out of the garage. Lu Chuang raised his brows. How could he feel that this kid is getting better and better? Here, the televised press conference is over. Title touch, Holy Light is Fooling You, can be completed. Unlock condition. Convince 15 villains to change their minds, 0/15. Awarded title. Super High School Level Priest New Achievement Missions. Seeing the appearance of the achievement task, Lu Chuang breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, he is really worried that if the current achievement task is not completed, there will be no new achievement task. Fortunately, it seems that there is no limit to the number of achievement tasks that can be triggered. Convincing 15 villains to change their minds? Lu Chuang was speechless when he saw the content of this achievement task. Does this game have hatred against the villains? Why do you always have trouble with the villains? Fortunately, this time Lu Chuang didn't see the word heavy sin. Otherwise the villain's training tool he threw into the basement would come out of the rivers and lakes again, and there would inevitably be another bloody storm at that time. However, the difficulty of this achievement task is not small. It seems that priests are better at persuading villains to change their minds. Definitely, ninjas cannot be ruled out. Mouth escape. I haven't learned this craft before. Lu Chuang thought about it for a while, and decided to go to a nearby church to find a priest to learn from. Among other things, he could at least try to imitate the other person's temperament, which would make it easier for him to fool other people, and maybe make the villain take the initiative to change his mind. Just do it. Lu Chuang took out his mobile phone and searched, and found a church in the south of Brooklyn. Little Peter, watch the door for me, I'll go out for a while. It's here, right? Lu Chuang looked at the church in front of him, and walked in without saying a word. The church was quiet, and only a few people could be seen vaguely. Lu Chuang scanned around with the game system. Target meets the conditions 5. Lu Chuang raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect that in a place full of light like a church, the probability of spawning villains is so high. There are 5 qualified villains in random investigations. No wonder they want to come to the church to pray. It turns out that they have ghosts in their hearts to purify. At this time, Lu Chuang saw one of the villains walking into the confessional deep in the church. Apparently, the priest of the church was inside the confessional. Lu Chuang found a seat and sat down, waiting patiently for the villain to come out. After more than 10 minutes, the villain came out of the confession room, and Lu Chuang subconsciously checked it with the game system. Target does not meet the conditions F*K? Lu Chuang was dumbfounded, decided to change his mind so soon? This is faster than he usually thinks about what to eat tomorrow. Thinking of this, Lu Chuang hurried into the confession room. The light in the confession room was very dim. Through the gauze in the middle, he could see a priest in black robes standing next door. Seeing the arrival of Lu Chuang, the priest said gently, "Please start, people." "Ah, start what?" "I mean, please start your confidant." "Oh, I almost forgot." Lu Chuang finally realized that he was in the confessional. According to the normal process, he should start to confess his faults and crimes. "Father, I don't know if I should say something or not." Lu Chuang quickly entered the state, pretending to be a sinner who came to confess. After all, he came to learn mouth escape, and he had to give the other party a chance to perform. "It's okay, kid, this is where you talk. Will you help me keep a secret? Everyone's secrets are safe, and if you want to confide in them, I am more than willing to help you keep them." "Well, I believe you." Lu Chuang thought for a while and said, "It's like this, for example. For example, I have a friend who shot and killed someone. Will God forgive him?" Hearing Lu Chuang's words, the priest realized instantly, which is not uncommon for him here. According to his experience, generally speaking, this friend must be himself. However, The job of a priest is like a psychological counselor and a lawyer, and he has the obligation to protect privacy. He will not go to the police because of these criminal evidences. The priest sighed softly. Son, God will forgive everyone. As long as your friend repents sincerely and promises never to do it again, I believe God will forgive him. Lu Chuang said with some embarrassment. I'm afraid it's a little difficult, because I mean my friend, he may have killed a little too much. How many? Not many, just a few dozen. The priest widened his eyes. This is actually a serial killer. The priest drew a sign of the cross on his chest, and managed to stabilize his emotions. Everyone has the opportunity to repent, and we cannot deprive anyone of the right to reform. If you repent sincerely, God will forgive you. I mean that friend of yours. Learned. Lu Chuang looked at the priest in the confession room, blinked, and suddenly asked, Father, I have one more question to ask. If I use an anesthetic needle to knock someone out, but I sincerely apologize, do you think that person will forgive me? The priest breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid of what horrible evidence would come out of Lu Chuang's mouth again. I think that person will forgive you if you are sincere enough. Yes, Father, I'm sorry, Father. Before the priest could react, he saw the door of the confessional suddenly open. Bu. The anesthetic needle pierced the priest's thigh, and the priest fell down slowly. Sorry. Let me use your identity. Lu Chuang placed the priest in the corner of the confessional, then took off his black robe and put it on for himself. After about a few minutes, Lu Chuang saw a figure walking in. Target meets the conditions immediately afterwards. A woman's voice came from the opposite side. Father, I am guilty. It seems that this villain is very conscious. Lu Chuang coughed lightly, trying to sound as gentle as possible. It's okay, kid. This is where you can confide, and I'm willing to help you keep a secret. The woman said tremblingly, Father, I betrayed my husband. Was it so explosive right from the start? Lu Chuang felt that even if he didn't have this achievement task, he would be able to eat melon seeds here and listen to gossip in the future. With the idea of rehabilitating the wicked, Lu Chuang said softly, Child, God will forgive everyone. As long as you repent sincerely and promise never to do it again, I believe God will forgive you. But the woman sobbed softly and continued, But I have never been able to face my husband and children, because the person I cheated on was my husband's twin brother. Lu Chuang. I said, what on earth are you drawing? Isn't this the same face? Well, everyone has the opportunity to repent. We cannot deprive anyone of the right to reform. I think if you are sincere enough, your family will forgive you, and your strong husband will forgive you too. Really, Father? Definitely. But I accidentally became pregnant with my husband's younger brother's child. This is free and open America. I love it. Lu Chuang looked at the comatose priest. What to do? There seems to be no formula for this kind of problem. Felt that Lu Chuang was not moving, and the woman asked, Father, are you still there? I am here. You said. What should I do now? Lu Chuang really has no experience with the plot of this kind of third-rate ethical drama. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and said, Don't worry, at least the child has grown up, and his appearance will not arouse your husband's suspicion. After all, they are twins, so they will look more or less similar. However, hearing Lu Chuang's words, the woman seemed to have unloaded her burden. Thank you so much, Father, I feel better instantly, and I won't betray my husband much in the future. No thanks. Watching the woman leave, Lu Chuang glanced at the game system. Unlock condition. Convince 15 villains to change their minds, 1/15. Lu Chuang curled his lips. You call this a change of heart? Obviously he is here to find psychological comfort. I believe it won't be long before this kind of person can't help but do other things again. However, it has nothing to do with him anyway. Thank you, Father. I know I'm a good girl even though I've had an abortion with a fight and a drug. May God forgive you, child. Lu Chuang replied skillfully, and then looked at the game system. Unlock condition. Convince 15 villains to change their minds, 14/15. Lu Chuang stayed in the confessional for several hours, and the progress bar was finally almost completed. He found that this achievement task did not seem to be as difficult as imagined. Those wicked people say they are here to feel ashamed, but in fact they are just giving themselves a psychological comfort, so that their inner guilt will be relieved, so that they can start a new life with peace of mind. It's a good one to lie to yourself. Definitely, there is no harm for Lu Chuang. At this time, another person walked into the confessional. Target does not meet the conditions. Seeing the system prompt, Lu Chuang lost interest in an instant, and became an unqualified confessor again. There is no way. Not all confessors are real villains, and the crimes some people confess are only trivial things, and they are not really villains at all. But Lu Chuang is in this position. It is not easy to drive away the opponent directly, so he can only continue to play the role of priest. Father, I am guilty. No need for Lu Chuang to speak. The other party came up with a classic opening remark. However, this voice seemed familiar to Lu Chuang. Immediately afterwards, the other party said slowly, I used to always listen to people's cries for help. I wanted to help those in need. I originally believed that there would be justice in the courts in broad daylight, but in the end I was deceiving myself. Darkness will only respond to darkness. I have to use more violent means to stop violence. Lu Chuang felt that the more he heard it, the more familiar it became. When he looked closer to the gauze net, he saw that the other party was a man in a suit wearing sunglasses. Yo, isn't this Lawyer Ma? Lu Chuang remembered that Matt was a Catholic, so it was not surprising that Matt came to church. So, I'm guilty. Just as Lu Chuang was thinking, Matt had finished his confession and asked, Father, do you think violence can really solve the problem? As a priest for several hours, Lu Chuang took his time and answered in a low voice, Definitely can't, kid. Matt sighed. He knew what he did might be wrong, but what could he do? Now that the situation in Hell's Kitchen is getting worse and worse, it is impossible for him to capture all criminals in prison at one time and prevent more crimes from happening through violence. However, Lu Chuang didn't stop, and continued, Violence can't solve any problems, but it can solve the people who create the problems. Matt. Although he thinks there is some truth in this sentence, but is it really okay for you as a priest to say such a thing? Interrupted by Lu Chuang, Matt's originally depressed mood became incoherent. Father, are you saying that violence is all wrong? Matt is worthy of being a lawyer, and Lu Chuang can directly score full marks for this reading comprehension alone. Lu Chuang said in a deep voice, Yes, since the problems have been solved smoothly, why should we care about the way to solve them? Matt thought about it, then took a deep breath. I see, force is only about solving worse problems, and that makes sense, if violence isn't. Violence is meaningless if it's not about killing. Matt. Lu Chuang. Made it easy to say, but he really couldn't control it. You are not a priest, who are you? Matt questioned. This time he finally discovered Lu Chuang's abnormality. Lu Chuang tried to explain. Child, what are you talking about? I am a priest. Matt didn't believe it at all, and immediately concentrated on spreading the perception to the opposite side, trying to capture the other party's information. At the same time, he heard a strong heartbeat. Boom boom boom. This time it's a minuet, and it's you again. Matt covered his heart pale. He didn't expect to hear Beethoven here. Lu Chuang said cheerfully. What a coincidence, Lawyer Ma, was the stinky tofu delicious last time? It's okay not to say this, but Matt feels nauseous when he mentions this. Last time Lu Chuang's stinky smoke bombs tortured Matt a lot. All kinds of stinky smells lingered on the tip of his nose for a long time, and he had to vomit for several days before he calmed down. As a result, Fudge suddenly came back with a box of stinky tofu now. His sense of smell was hit hard again. During that time, his sense of smell seemed to be out of order, leaving only the residual smell of stinky tofu. Matt forcibly suppressed the surging stomach acid, gritted his teeth and said, What are you doing here? Lu Chuang said helplessly. Aren't you talking nonsense? I'm a priest, isn't it normal in church? You are not a priest at all. The person lying next to your ear is the real priest. If there were such a bad priest, the church would be ruined sooner or later. With his powerful perception ability, Matt was able to perceive that there was another person in the space beside Lu Chuang. Judging by the beating of his heart, the other person should be temporarily unconscious. It was also for this reason that Matt was able to resist not directly attacking Lu Chuang. He fell asleep, so I came to take his place. Lu Chuang opened his eyes and said nonsense. Lawyer Ma, if there is nothing else, please don't block those believers who need the priest to listen to you. His tone was very calm, and it sounded as if he was really thinking about the followers. Lu Chuang has the ability to control the heartbeat, and Matt couldn't judge how much of what he said was true or false, but considering that this is a church, he clenched his fists and finally walked out of the confession room. Before leaving, Matt warned, "I'll be watching you from outside." The staring that Matt mentioned here naturally refers to his perception ability. The whole church is within the range of his perception, and every move of Lu Chuang will be locked by him. Matt's words are to warn Lu Chuang not to act recklessly. Lu Chuang spread his hands to show his innocence. He is a decent priest, how could he mess around? Soon after Matt left, a woman came in. "Father, my cat is dead, can you pray for it?" "Sorry. Animals are not within the scope of our prayer business, and our prayers are only open to believers." Lu Chuang resolutely refused, asking him to sing the Great Compassion mantra for salvation, and pray that he would not know how to do this. After the prayers, "I want to sing the $50,000 giving chapter." "Ma'am, don't talk about it. It doesn't matter if it's money or not. I just want to pray for your cat." "Well, our church only accepts cash. Just hand over the cash to me." Matt, who is eavesdropping in the church. Silent. If this kind of person is a priest, God will kill this guy with a thunderbolt first.